You ever scroll through NFL stats and think to yourself, does anyone even really care about these anymore?
Their statistics? Matt Schaub has a higher passer rating than Roger Staubach. Kerry Collins has more career passing yards than Joe Montana.
Many of the stats don't even matter anymore. So, how about we dive into 10 NFL stats that no longer move the needle for any analyst worth their weight? Punting average. Yeah, there may be no more irrelevant stat in the game today than the punting average. I mean, it's just so pointless. In fact, I'd bet punters don't even have the confidence to brag about it in the locker room. What defensive lineman wants to hear their punter yelling, "Look how far I kicked it," only to neglect mentioning that the ball bounced into the end zone or got returned for 35 yards. I want to be a little sensitive to the fact that most punters already get very little shine, but man, this just is not the place to start. Seriously, what is this stat even supposed to tell us? That your punter has a strong leg? Hey, congratulations! So does every other guy in the league. Quarterback's Super Bowl wins. Yeah, this one might ruffle some feathers, but we gotta talk about it. Super Bowl wins, for some reason, have become the final argument in any GOAT debate. You've got multiple rings, you gotta be elite. If you've got none, you're a fraud. Case closed, right? Wrong. Look, nobody's saying Super Bowl wins don't matter, because they do. They are literally the entire point of the sport. But to use them as a quarterback's entire resume, that's where it gets dumb very fast. Because if we follow that logic to its end, we're saying that Trent Dilfer is better than Dan Marino. We're saying that Brad Johnson is better than Phillip Rivers. Eli Manning? Oh, he's way better than Aaron Rodgers. Do you kind of see where this goes? Super Bowl wins are a team accomplishment. The quarterback is a huge part, but he's only a part. Doesn't play defense. He doesn't kick. He doesn't recover onside kicks. And yet somehow we've decided that this stat belongs to quarterbacks and quarterbacks alone. It just doesn't make any sense. Fourth quarter comebacks. Yeah, so while people love to point toward fourth quarter comebacks, and there are a number of elite quarterbacks who have racked up quite a few of these, this stat is a classic case of correlation versus causation. And quite frankly, it might be one of the most misleading stats in all of football. I mean, take a look at it at face value. Nothing says elite quarterback play like being down late and hoping that your defense doesn't collapse after you finally did your job. You could be trailing by a point with 12 minutes left in the fourth, run a 2-minute drill that stalls, kick a field goal, and then watch your defense hold firm for the next 10 minutes, and that somehow counts as a gold star for the quarterback? Now, on the other side of that coin, a guy can lead a brilliant game-winning drive, give your team the lead, and watch your defense cough it up with 13 seconds left. And guess what? No comeback credited. This whole stat is structured like a bad group project. You know, the guy who does all the work rarely seems to be the one that actually gets the most credit. Look, don't get me wrong, clutch quarterback play definitely matters, but fourth quarter comebacks don't separate clutch QBs from guys whose defense bailed them out. And let's not forget, this all starts with being in a position to need a comeback in the first place, which isn't exactly the best look. Passing yards. Okay, once upon a time, there was a time. In fact, it wasn't all that long ago when throwing for 4,000 yards in an NFL season really meant something. In fact, it meant a whole lot. The guys that did it were slinging it deep, threading needles, and carrying their offenses. Now it feels like most of the 4,000-yard passers just showed up, threw it 40 times a game, and didn't get benched. Modern passing yardage is the most bloated, misleading stat on the entire planet. Every broadcast loves to flash it like it's some stamp of greatness. He threw for 4,800 yards this season. Oh, neat. Did they win 8 games? Did half of that come while trailing by 3 scores in the second half? Did 1,300 of those yards come from receivers turning 4-yard slants into 40-yard gains? Never mind the fact that the rules of the game have been completely warped to enable offenses to throw the ball with more regularity. It is crazy that people still act like this stat means the same thing. The record books show it clearly. It has become a graveyard of inflated air miles. Total receptions. Yeah, there's a reason that this stat has become every running back and slot receiver's favorite thing to bring up at family dinners. I had 107 catches last year. Yeah, and 86 of them went for less than 10 yards. Congrats on being really good at jogging 5 yards and turning around. Total receptions has officially entered the realm of participation trophy stats. stats. High volume, low impact. It feels like the only reason it keeps hanging around is PPR leagues and fantasy football and lazy narratives. Maybe some average fans still see a guy rack up triple-digit receptions and think, man, he must be unstoppable. But that stat amidst the context of how toothless those receptions actually are. But alas, we're living in the checkdown era. Quick outs, bubble screens, pre-snap RPOs. It's all about throwing it fast and letting someone else do the work. It's not that the players racking up receptions aren't talented. Heck, some of them are pretty damn good. But catching the ball a lot does not mean you're dominating. Sometimes it just means that you're always the safe option when nothing else is open. You are the emergency exit, not the main attraction. Total rushing yards. Alright, so this one's kind of tricky because on paper, total rushing yards feels like a legacy stat that should still mean something. It looks tough, it looks gritty, it looks like a metric that rewards durability and production. But as soon as you begin peeling back the layers, you'll find that it's been hollowed out by modern offenses and committee backfields. In fact, more often than not, we see the best running backs in the league nowhere near the top of the rushing leaderboard, all because of how their teams use them. And a lot of the 1,000-yard rushers, which used to be the benchmark for greatness, are more so mules just pounding away 3.2-yard carries. Total rushing yards also rewards volume, not value. A back can rack up 1,200 yards by waltzing through soft boxes and losing efforts. Meanwhile, another back might have just 850 yards, but every single one of them felt like a dagger. That's why we see the top analysts today looking at metrics like yards per carry, but with qualifiers. Success rate on early downs, explosive run rate, EPA per rush. You know, stats that tell you whether your back is creating real offense, not just keeping the clock moving. Quarterback wins. Yeah, so if you've spent any time around NFL bar arguments, you've likely heard about how this quarterback just finds a way to win. He's 61-33 as a starter. Yeah, but is he the cause or just a benefactor? It sounds definitive and is an easy way to point to quarterback performance in an easy to digest way. But honestly, it is a house of mirrors. It's the NFL equivalent of judging a chef based on the rest of the restaurant's performance. Valet service and the bathroom cleanliness included. And yet, some people still cling to it like it's gospel, as if the guy who's been carried by elite defenses and running games is somehow a better winner than a QB constantly dragging a bottom 10 roster into relevance. Quarterback wins look great on paper, but as an actual metric for individual greatness, they're only slightly more useful than judging a wide receiver on how many team field goals were made during his game. Tackles. At times, tackles can be the stat equivalent of cleaning up your own mess, or at least your teammates' mess. Because here's the problem. Not all tackles are created equal. Most of them are just damage control. And yet fans and some media outlets still pump tackle totals like they tell the whole story. He led the league in tackles. Okay, but where were those tackles? Behind the line or chasing guys after getting burned? If you want to measure true impact, don't look at total tackles. Look at tackles for loss, run stop percentage, average depth of tackle. Look at plays where a guy actually won his rep, not just survived it. That's where you'll find the best defenders in the game today. It isn't 1975 anymore. Nobody cares, or nobody should care about how many tackles you backed into. Catch rate. On its surface, catch rate seems like one of the more logical stats in the game. If a receiver is targeted a lot and catches a high percentage of those balls, that should mean he's reliable, productive, a technician of sorts. But the problem with catch rate is the problem with a lot of these legacy stats. It just ignores context entirely. Let's say a receiver has a 53% catch rate. Sounds like a bit of a red flag. You know, a guy is maybe a drop machine, or maybe his quarterback is sailing balls past him, or he only runs extremely low percentage deep routes. Yeah, so catch rate does not account for depth of target, quarterback accuracy, defensive coverage, or play design. It's a blunt instrument measuring a technical skill that demands far more nuance. Penalties. Okay, obviously, no team wants to commit penalties. It's giving away free yardage on defense and a complication on offense. And it's not untrue that bad teams commit a lot of penalties. And yeah, it is just free yardage for the other team that can kill drives and fuels coaching meltdowns on national TV. But penalties might be the most misunderstood stat in all of the NFL. Not because the number itself is unclear, but because we treat it like it means the same thing across every single snap, player, and situation. There's this assumption that bad teams commit more penalties because they're sloppy, undisciplined, and poorly coached. And yeah, sometimes that's true. If you've got an offensive lineman false starting 3 times a quarter and defensive backs grabbing at ghosts, then you've got some real problems. But the fact of the matter is, it's not uncommon to see the top playoff teams among the top transgressors because of the aggressive systems that they deploy on game day. But hey, which stat do you think is the most meaningless these days? What do you think we're wrong about here? What do you think we got right? Let us know in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, then clicking the like button helps us out a ton. And you know, we really appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, then subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.